Mr. Woods, I'm Detective Brandon Hill. He simply stared. The occasional flickering of the fluorescent lights above us served as a reminder of our department's budget. We had caught him moments ago, lurking around a school by Riverport, for God's sake. You've been arrested for the murder of 7 individuals in the Riverport area. I tapped my index finger on my tongue and passed some files across the table that contained images of the victims, gruesome ones. He looked down and gazed at them, as if reliving them. He looked proud. Tell me, I began, scooting my chair closer to the cold, steel table between us. Looking at all this, how do you feel? He remained silent for a moment that felt like an eternity with him. Then, still seated and still smirking, he very slowly leaned forward and lowered his head until his chin barely touched the table, and his eyes glaring up at me, replied,
"Feel?"
I gulped louder than I should have. Yeah. How do you feel about what you did?
What does that mean?
I realized the ridiculousness of the question. I was talking to someone who had the same emotional reaction, murdering people, that I do swatting flies. Still, he was playing with me.
I don't believe I understand the question, Detective.
He continued, trying to hide his smile. Keith Woods was one of the most clean-cut persons I had ever met. His pitch-black hair slightly sloped across his forehead and almost met his thick eyebrows. His fingernails trimmed perfectly, and his face spotless and filled with youth. He wore a white dress-up shirt and black jeans. I didn't want to begin imagining where his tie was, what he might have used it for. I continued my questioning. We don't often get young men sitting here, especially ones who just graduated with their masters, in an interrogation room, cuffed. I sat back with my arms crossed, awaiting his response. His white buttoned-up shirt almost glowed against the light in the room. I sat there for a moment and imagined. Not a single stain or speck of dust on it. But in reality, he was colored in his victim's blood. Just thinking of that white shirt, plastered in red. Appearance, truly, is everything.
Oh, I didn't ruin my life.
He answered.
Can't say the same for... I said I can't say the same for...
He suddenly burst out in an obnoxiously loud laughter, akin to that of a hyena. I was not amused, and neither were the officers watching from the other side of the one-way mirror. I collected the files I had put before him, going through the images for myself one last time. One in particular challenged my ability to keep my professionalism. A 19-year-old boy, Thomas Goodman, beaten to death. Mr. Woods had an envelope delivered to the boy's parents on Christmas morning. For anyone who dares to question my ability to keep myself in check in the face of evil, remember that one. Could you hold back? I continued my questioning. Mr. Woods, tell me about Jessica Lopez. A small grin appeared on his face. He sat back and tapped his shiny loafers against the floor, as if thinking.
What about it?
What did you do to her? Do you remember?
Oh, of course I do, Detective. In fact...
He opened his mouth and picked at his teeth, the chains to his cuffs rattling.
In fact, I can still taste her.
I sat back and waited for him to regain his composure. After he spent a good minute, laughing like a lunatic. In the 20 years I've been doing this, I've never met a more vile monster. Not in my life. I just wanted to reach over the table right then and grab him by his skinny throat. You never would have guessed him, of all people, capable of doing something like that. And that's what's truly horrifying. He was young, clean, teeth as white as snow, and well-dressed, all complete with a touch of cologne, just to fool you a little further. Keith.
First name. How up close and personal of you, Detective?
His eyes widened, disturbingly so. He was having fun now. This wasn't an interrogation anymore. But how could you blame me for failing this interview? How do you even begin to intimidate evil itself? I continued. You leave behind an envelope to the families of the victims. They have a red spot or mark on them. We ran some tests in the lab and learned that these red markings are from the respected victim's blood, correct? He simply nodded, seemingly unimpressed with our discovery. It was like he was waiting for us to catch up with him. Like he was the teacher, and us, his disappointing students. Bastard. The door behind me opened. Detective, you've got a phone call. I got up and walked out the door, pausing for a moment to snatch another look at Mr. Woods. He looked right back at me and tilted his head like a confused dog, minus the creepy smile. I picked up the phone. I'm at work. What is it, Lori?
Brandon? Hello?
Yeah. Yes, honey, it's me. What is it?
Sorry, I didn't want to bother you, but I found an envelope sitting at the door, and it's got this huge blob of red paint on it. I have no idea. Is it from your work? But, Michael hasn't come home yet. High school ended hours ago, and I haven't heard from him yet.
I dropped the phone at the most hideous and vile laughter from the interrogation room that I'd ever heard.
Please leave your message